Okay. Welcome to our third platform dialogue of this week. The first one focused on co-creation collaboration. This was on Tuesday. Yesterday, we had a talk about material attainability, so the combination of research and sustainability. And today, we'll be talking about interface. Interface being the end of the week and being the time when we start to do away with the material, so start to go beyond materiality. And also how we might use these things to collaborate. We've also just recently begun the launch of our new website and the knowledge platforms, and this is something that's on our minds. So today we have with us, starting from left to right, Birgit Lohmann, who is the Associate Editor-in-Chief of Designboom online magazine. She will give us a short video presentation about where Designboom sits within publishing and communications world. Here to my right is Markus Benz, the CEO of Walter Knoll, who I'm sure you're all familiar with. And he's going to talk about the interface, so the kind of actual, maybe more physical interface between the designer and the producer, and where that goes. And if there's a gap for something in between that we might find, something that's never been. And then here in the middle is Jan-Christoph Zoels, Senior Partner of User Experience Design at Experentia, based in Turin. And he's going to talk about interfaces that go beyond lightweight interactions, so we'll find out what that means, in order to foster trustworthy interactions and co-creation, so something that we're already talking about. Here in the middle is Filippo Lodi. He's our leader of the Inventive Materials platform. My name is Rob Henderson. I am the Knowledge Platform Coordinator. We have several other UNStudio and Proof guests with us as well today. So let's get started with Birgit.
Design is made by designers and architects, and that's why we advocate for the creative community and encourage a positive intercultural dialogue. Essentially, we support constructive ideas and fabulous talent, be it the established or the up-and-coming. We do this by working closely with professionals in the fields of design, architecture, art, graphics, photography, and technology. Information on Designboom is presented clearly, plainly, and simply so that everyone, 4 million readers from 190 countries, can succeed in understanding and navigating it. You have to care about your readers. Our business model is a consequence of supporting them. It's a happy byproduct, not a means unto itself. We create narratives around the values we hold dear. In Designboom's free internet resource, you'll find not just the latest news and in-depth information, but also design history. There's simply more fresh content. And by taking advantage of what the web does best, discussion threads evolve. Publishing in a dynamic digital format requires a different editorial workflow and approach than publishing in a static print magazine. What we do is in flux, and as our work is expanding, so too are our ideas about how we do it. Our readers can reach us just as easily as we can reach them. This is a publishing strategy that focuses on content that makes us all smarter. Recently, we've introduced a reader submission sector that offers the very best and most vital to expand outward to other publications. About half of what we publish is our own original content, sourced and produced by Designboom. We travel, visit architectural projects worldwide, and document the current state of art through beautiful pictures. Here we're browsing through the 39 articles Designboom has published about Danish architecture firm Big, ranging from installations and winning proposals they've developed to interviews and visits we've taken firsthand of their Copenhagen studio. Zaha Hadid's work has been featured in 63 Designboom articles. We followed her career by documenting the construction of her projects from Beijing to Venice, offering the first look of her competition proposals, industrial design projects, and specialty commissions. Most architecture firms send exclusively to Designboom a preview of what they are currently working on, making us the first to learn about the new work directly from the source. This allows us to publish new stories, contextualizing the info and renderings of the unpublished work much earlier than other publications. What you're looking at now is the Taipei Performing Arts Center by OMA. We interest ourselves in contemporary theory and criticism just as much as we do in the latest news and most arresting projects. Here, OMA Principal Ron Koolhaus is giving Designboom a tour of the Chrono Chaos exhibition at the Architectural Biennale in Venice. He interrogates the place of architecture in society and examines the tensions between preservation, use, and restoration. The Shenzhen Stock Exchange is a project that Designboom has been following throughout its construction. So we've made the trip to Shenzhen to get a first-hand look at the ongoing project. We believe in the power of presentation, so the images you see on Designboom are some of the largest you'll find on the web, impacting upon our readers a sense of scale that these projects impose in real life. A special video section on our site lets you watch your way through the news.
Just want to describe the initial concept. It was a very simple one. A tower, a base, and simply lifting the base.
Keeping at the forefront of architecture, with so much going on in the world, is far from always easy. But we're not afraid to scale the scaffolding and brave the half-functioning elevators of an in-process construction site. We've donned our hard hats and navigated the maze of steel framework of the Shenzhen International Airport Edition, verifying on our own the impressive speed of building development in quickly growing China. Designed by Massimo Jan and Dorian Fuchsis, the structure spans 400,000 square meters and will make Shenzhen's airport the fourth largest in the country. In September 2011, for the first time ever, 6 protagonists of the world of contemporary Chinese architecture met together in a public event in Beijing organized by Designboom. Over the course of the presentations and a roundtable talk, these architects discussed critically the state of contemporary building design and urban development, and the ways in which their work relates to the greater context of a rapidly industrializing country. More and more people are willing and able to experiment, which is exciting, and Designboom is recognized as trend forecasters and influencers. We don't often have time to consider all the underlying elements that give our work shape. That, apart from a busy publishing schedule, we curate conferences, exhibitions, and organize design competitions. We look forward to seeing you.
Yes. Good afternoon. I thought this is a very easy format to give an understanding of how much work it takes to produce original content. We are not journalists. Our work is based on some press releases, obviously, but we always prefer going, seeing, meeting, understanding, and therefore we have a team which travels a lot. We receive, I think, 3,000 press releases in a month, and obviously we cannot publish this amount of articles. which is a pity because there's so many interesting things out there, and I'm still figuring out, as we are talking about interfaces, how to create the perfect interface that information is seen, because the overexposure to data, to information, makes it more and more difficult for us publishers to do articles which have a little bit more text, for example, a little bit more images, because Twitter is there to say something very shortly, but also readers' habits are changing. Maximum of 3 pictures, 4 phrases, and people think they know what we are talking about, and they switch to another article. So this is a bit frustrating if you are based on something where you have traveled, where you met, where you have produced photo series, and we are still trying to figure out how can we remain market leaders by not changing too much our format. Yes. Shall I say something else?
No, that's fantastic, Birgit. And I think we'll come around, and I think for sure Jan-Christoph might have something to say about designed interfaces. And next on to Markus Benz. One moment. Our expert sound man takes a moment. Yeah.
Hope the technique works. Yeah, should be good. This is
presentation, please. Yeah, okay.
It's coming. Okay. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. My name is Markus Benz. My company is Knoll. And I was asked, maybe I stand up for this short presentation, but I was asked to talk about interfaces, and our subject is how architects and designers are working with manufacturers. So I give a short introduction to the company. The Knoll is the eldest upholstery company in Germany, and it's going back to 1865, almost 150 years. And these are the roots of all the Knoll families which you know in the furniture business. Walter Knoll is the father of Hans Knoll, who founded Knoll International in the 40s in the States. Later on, when Hans Knoll died, the relationship with Knoll International is not continued because the company was sold to investors. I came from a furniture background as well, and my family bought Walter Knoll in 1993, and since almost 20 years I'm running the company. So we are located close to Stuttgart, and it's a very special area for craftsmanship. It's the home of Porsche, Mercedes, Bosch, and we have a very special surrounding to produce high-end furniture. It's like we are like a cook who is sitting in the middle of the best ingredients. To show what we do, therefore we have built a wonderful building which we call a brand land. The brand is the customer's idea of our performance. That means we have to create that picture, and in this building you can see from the street level into the production, into our offices and into our showroom, if you can fly high enough. I give you some ideas about the projects we have realized. We do high-end furniture for all customer-faced areas in the contract side or high-end residential. These are some projects we did with customers which are having a strong relation to or strong expression of their brand. This is Adidas in Herzogenaurach, and you see this beautiful sofa called Circle, which you see in that corner, and it's of course designed by Ben van Berkel, UNStudio. Then Swarovski in London. I just clicked through some impressions. We do also a lot of business with brands, and our products become part of their brand because they use it as showroom furniture or as their brand presentations. Then Samsung Crystal Office, then beautiful golf course in Korea. It's a wonderful wooden construction. Unfortunately, the screen is not so big, so. This is the house of Benz and Berkeley in Stuttgart. And it shows also the possibility to use the furniture in the living environment. Then City of Books in Mexico. Our company is worldwide active. We have about 65% of export. This is the Mi Hotel in London, designed by Norman Foster. This is also a circle which is going towards the end. If you cannot see it, Microsoft, Tokyo, Japan, and HOK, London. So, and sometimes our products are used in movies as well. For instance, in The Ghost Rider by Roman Polanski. When we ask about the partnership between architects and designers, and I was very often asked, what is the strength of our company? And I've thought about it. Are these the furniture? Are these the people? Maybe all is true, but I think that it's our special capability to create social relationships. Social relationships are not just made for a purpose. Social relationships has something to do with the respect of each other, second of loyalty, liability, and it has also a certain longevity. That means we try to develop relationships with people, and on the base of that relationship we can then do our work together. It's very important because in the old days, here in, for instance, in Milan, it was perfect. There were the manufacturers, they were sitting here, they had their friends, the architects, then they were meeting, made their designs together, and had also the pleasure together. In a modern world, we are not all sitting in one place, so we have to come together from different areas. But that's why we have to understand how our partner and what they expect and what we expect, because design it's not a real democratic process, but on the other side you need the teamwork. So this is something how the designer thinks a relationship should walk. You sit there and you give a lecture to your producer. It's maybe one of the dreams. But the thing which is true, we have to go deep into the thoughts and to create a foundation for our work. And here you see that we are really sitting together, talking can be very tiring. This is the result when the designer should do something after all the people have talked. He has to sleep first and to relax. This is Martin from EOS when we designed the new chair. But design is about the communication of the people, and it's very often also very practical. And the better these people can understand, and the better we can bring all the information from all related partners, and the better we can structure this information, the better the product can be. And that's why I believe in long-term relationships. And with EOS we work already more than 15 years, with Norman Foster more than 10 years, with Benz and Berkeley about also 8-9 years. And sometimes there are special developments, maybe some of you have seen that. And I had a friend and he designed that and he said, yeah, can we build that? And then we tried to do that, but we could not find a solution which at the end created a result which was acceptable from price. Of course you can create a shell, it's not a technical problem, but to bring something to market, to make it economically successful, is more difficult. And then when you have no relationship, you end up in a big disappointment of all the partners involved. And a good relationship is sustainable even if some things do not work as expected and they are continuing. So I'll go flip a little bit faster through a chair which we did for sustainability reasons with EOS. It was just a metal string frame and a sheet on which you want to sit on, and it's nicely cut out of saddle leather. The process with designer is a little bit different than with architects. When we work with designers, you have to create a relationship and an understanding on an abstract basis very often. And that takes quite long. Usually I need about 2 years to build up a relationship with a designer. And when you work with architects, they don't have that time. They have to build houses. And if they start to make too much design, it may be an expensive hobby for them. So, but what's good about the architects, they have usually a frame, a building in which they have already designed, and related to that frame, you can start working on projects into that building. And when Ben did the Mercedes-Benz Museum in Stuttgart, there was the idea created an exhibition space which has like a double helix going up and down, and so that you just could walk all the way down in the museum or up, depends how you want to go. And in that process there was a model created which had a similar idea. You will see the model on the left, on your right here, and the idea was to have a sofa, an ongoing sofa which has a seating position and a relaxed position and all the positions in between. And actually it's a piece of art on which you can sit. And it was a pleasure to work on such a complex product. It's not so easy to, in that process, how do you construct the piece, how you what is the material you use to build this ongoing or floating form. For me, when I've successfully done the first product with an architect and we have a good relationship, I want, of course, to go on with that relationship. So we built the My Chair, this nice lady sitting on it. And it's nice to have all the influence of the different lifestyle areas. When I talk with Ben, he brings his international, but also his Dutch experience and background into the design. When we talk to Claudio Bellini in Milan, he brings the Milan experience into our business. Norman Foster or Pearson Lloyd from London. These are all multicultural places, but of course everybody of us has its roots in his area. So just the latest product with Norman Foster. We exhibit also in Milan on the Fiera on Hall 7, and that's already the next generation. This is my daughter, so with pride I'm happy to present her as well. And when everything is successfully done, then we have a wonderful product, and a whole team has worked on it to create it to perfection. The craftsmen have brought all their knowledge into it to make it look perfect. But there's also one truth at the end as well. The architect is the star. This is Ben in the Mercedes-Benz Museum on the top level. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Markus. And we'll hand it over to Jan-Christoph Zoels.
Hi, thanks very much, Birgit, Markus. Interfaces is a very loaded word, and I want to give you my perception and then actually provoke a little bit this discussion around interfaces. Or let's say differently, I'm Jan-Christoph Zoels, I'm a creative director at Experentia, and we really deal with interfaces on 4 levels. The first one is really the interfaces between person to device. So that's what actually your tablet, your mobile phone, your web interaction is. But that's a pretty typical term of interfaces in the design field. The second one is really person to person, the social media which Birgit was talking about. The third level is something which I think Markus is deeply involved with in designing intelligent spaces, spaces which enable through interactions between the environments, the interactive elements, new forms of collaboration. And then the fourth thing is what we call ambient environments, and there we work together. I had the chance to work twice with UNStudio. With an ambient environment, it's really the larger scale, even including all these elements of the previous interfaces below it, in bringing in data-enabled, smart, sensorial environments. And so there, as interaction designers, we help architects and engineers to focus on a different detail level of these digital interactions. Now, interfaces, of course, is also a dated word. I prefer to talk about interactions because interactions has this behavioral dimension to it, and that actually brings me to one of the challenging parts of the discussion in the interaction design domain. Last year, and maybe last year, Paul Adams, the head of design for Facebook, stated to be successful in the future, we need to design content based on many small, lightweight interactions at a time. And Paul is a very, very smart man. He certainly connects lightweight interactions to the way of how we build social relationships and building deep emotional connections over time through conversation, a nod, a tip on the shoulder, to some small stages of building trust, similar as what Markus talked about of establishing the relationship before then really a product comes out over the time in 2 years. But I deeply believe that lightweight interactions is probably not the right term for it. It really leaves a certain shallow feeling on it. The world is not just shares and likes and dislikes and the Twitter chatterati's of the world. So what I would like to propose really deals much more about fostering trustworthy interaction. And if we talk about trust, then that really means there is a belief into the benevolence and the fairness of the other, but there is also a confidence in the competence of the other. And I think the discussion which you guys had here on Tuesday with Ben and Jürgen, and I forgot the owner of Proof, Leo, was quite interesting in focusing on the cooperation between others, trust, also co-creation to come up with this. But what does trust again means? Barbara Mitzak describes it in one of her books as trust makes social life more predictable. It creates a sense of community, and of course it increases collaboration between peoples and organizations. And looking around here and seeing this interesting juxtaposition between Knoll on one side, or Walter Knoll on one side, and then Proof, the other is actually quite interesting because these spaces are quite differently enabling collaboration and trust in large organization. Now, what does trustworthy interaction means for me on an interface level? We, for example, I give you an example, we are working currently with Intel Healthcare on solutions for or software solutions to enable stronger data exchange between different caregivers in hospitals as well as between doctors and patients. And so really think about that these tablets like which Filippo is right now using have a purpose not only to inform the doctor, but also developing a different relationship again with the patient and doctor and sharing data, of making stuff transparent. So it's really requires an interaction designer to rethink of what's the next trustworthy interaction, and that goes far beyond the social media. The next postulate is a little bit for me the reconceiving the signifiers of trust. And we know that trust is essentially based on social relationships. It's based on shared group memberships. In sociological terms, we even talk about in-group versus out-of-group membership. So now, to be honest, we are all here in a certain in-group. We have a similar kind of education, a similar kind of design background, so we have a certain way of approaching what we see around us. But at the same time, these interface languages which we see around us are similarly designed by an in-crowd, and particularly in California or here in Europe. And so I'm just seeing there is some diversity missing, and particularly if we think about the world beyond our immediate boundaries. So we need to design for diversity in a stronger way. It's not enough to have interfaces determined by the current startup cultures of the West Coast and Berlin and London, and to a much lesser degree here in Italy. Now, what we are doing in the space as interaction designers, we are focusing right now on designing mobile applications for farming cooperatives in sub-Saharan Africa, together with a team of international designers. And this is a project financed by the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Agriculture. And there our goal is really to understand and support local practices of farming and really bringing the value chain down to the individual farmers and seeing how mobile devices can actually do this. But I tell you, the interfaces look quite differently as what you see in Twitter and the other surrounding interfaces. So diversity counts again. Third part is really a little bit about the puncturing the self-referential filter bubbles. What do I mean with that? If you use Google, over the time when you use Google more and more, Google just will refer stuff to you which is based on your search history. It's very self-selecting, meaning at the end we only see what we want to see. And that's actually quite a limitation of discourse and of interfaces in itself. We are limiting our perspective. And so I think as an interaction designer, again, I want to see unbiased searches. I want to see an increase of privacy and ownership. I want to see stuff beyond my current comfort level to be challenged in itself. And so there, in this level, we are working with architects and designers in, for example, designing carbon-neutral building complexes. We have worked on a low-to-no project in Helsinki, designing a whole district which is carbon-neutral with Sauerbruch-Hatten and Arup. And there we focused really on designing software interfaces which help people to not only check their own energy consumption, but to compare with others and then act upon it. So it's really going beyond the comfort level of yourself to actually see how you measure up and how do you actually stay within the social relationships again of others. So, and that will be out there as of early 2013. My fourth postulate, and just bear with me for two more, is that we really need to increase the discourse beyond the lightweight interactions. A world of lightweight interactions of the shares, the likes, the dislikes, the Twitter feeds is not really meaningful, at least for myself. I think there is a challenge for us as content creators. If we are designers, writers, entrepreneurs, we need to enable a different participation in the creation process. Right now we see it really on the web. There is a 1% of content creators, 5% of commentators, and the rest of us are essentially consumers. This is not a sustainable way if we want to actually be more cooperative and discursive even. The medium doesn't really add yet much in this field. So again here we are looking at more social and cooperative ways of engaging people in the early decision-making processes. So for example, again, in the same, an example with UNStudio, we worked on a beautiful competition together where we tried to build an urban informatics system behind the building designed by UNStudio, where we actually from the outside make clear what kind of energy consumption is going on, and as well what kind of energy production is done on site. And so you experience actually, as you approach the building from the distance, and so the building gets another signifier beyond the, of course, sophisticated architectural language in itself. My fifth challenge is really about co-engaging people in the decision-making process. We all know that people attitudes do not automatically translate into action. So what can we do about it? Eric Pickard from the University in Manchester talks about 5 different ways to engage people in the participation process. And he says essentially it's really first about understanding the issue, secondly about carrying the issues, thirdly about knowing what to do to address this issue, and then what will doing something solve it? Will this solve actually the problem? And lastly, what do other people think about it if I get involved? So these 5 levels help us to think about what are incentives, rewards, or what can contribute to a certain social cohesiveness in the design process. And again, there we are trying very much early on in the design process, also with architects and engineers, to bring up different stakeholders in this process of what should this carbon neutral building be, or like in Finland, what would be living on an 8-story timber frame building like when the city burned down 150 years ago in Finland, and people still have this fear of living in wooden buildings which are higher as 2 stories. And last but not least, it's really about engaging or enabling a new kind of stakeholder ownership in the process of design. And so for us, it's really, we know that information is not enough. Information contributes to some awareness, but it doesn't translate into action. So at Experentia, we have built this behavioral framework of moving from awareness to empowerment to kind of ownership. And awareness really starts with stimulating awareness of the changes going to happen and how we can actually raise people's awareness or the potential to actually shape these changes. The second part in this one is really the empowerment, and they're empowering and building human capacity to exchange and create skills and then take shape of the opportunities to happen. And thirdly, ownership really talks about stimulating ownership through participatory development strategies. So that sounds very philosophical and social, but we as designers are really trying to integrate this very clearly in our collaborations with other companies, with architects, with engineers, and really trying to design a new experience of what ownership means, as well as what trustworthy interactions mean behind the lightweight interactions, which I complained earlier on about. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jan-Christoph. I'll try to draw a line through all of the fantastic things you guys have been saying. And there's 2 things I think that came up, and we'll kind of hit these around the table. The first one is an idea of duration. I mean, I think most obviously in what Markus is talking about, like the length of time, the length of interface you have to go through to build a relationship, but also what Birgit was alluding to when you say that Zaha Hadid has 63 posts on Designboom, yet there's a certain moment where it becomes too much. I forget your exact terminology, but there's a moment where we're overstimulated. And at what point does that come? This sort of, and when the posts fall down the page and you get to number 63, where is the time value in that, right? And then, of course, with what Jan-Christoph is saying, I think one bit of really interesting processes you're describing was self-referential filter bubbles, which is a difficult sentence to unpackage, but it's also about getting out of those bubbles. And how long does it take us to get out of those bubbles? Yeah, and do the Africans more quickly come out of the bubbles, or do we more quickly come out of the bubbles, or is someone in China or Brazil, for instance, because you're talking about location? Yeah, so I'd like to pass it around the table, kind of on those ideas. Markus, start with you. And I think particularly, you know, because you're also all talking about processes, but I think particularly when you say that the architect uses the building as a framework, because the building itself has a certain duration, right? There's a certain time for it to design it, and a long-term process to build it, a bit longer than a product. Maybe you can speak to that.
Yeah, the situation is the following. When you design and at the end you have a furniture, just a chair or a sofa, it is not to design a furniture. It's always related to context. And the context is a space, the context is a use, and especially it's a context about the people who are going to use. So when you have already that frame and the building, then it's clear what the context is, and then it's much easier to communicate than create an abstract surrounding. You need then different scenarios in which you design in. And the good thing is it's a faster start, but at the end when you talk to each other, years, days by days, month by month and years, then we have that relationship that we understand fully what the company is you work for, what the designer is trying to express, and then we can also do different work.
Yeah, how many posts is too many posts? Or are there
it's
too many
not
posts?
the post in itself. We publish 15 articles a day. Oh God. And it has to be a good mix. There should be art, there should be technology, there should be design and architecture. So I think maybe an architect checks the architecture posts plus maybe an art post, because everything is interrelated. I don't think that my readers read everything what we publish. I even don't know everything what we publish, because obviously we have an editorial manager. So it's not, if you look at a newspaper is full of articles, and you can't say it's too much. No, it's not too much. You pick what you want to read. I'm more worried about the concentration of my readers. How much content can they digest? What do they want to see? Sometimes you click on something, you're interested, but then you're more happy if you have just one image, one phrase, and that's it, what you're looking for. And I tend to deliver you 15 images, a little bit of long text, and you might be overwhelmed by this. So I'm not really sure, as I see that the world of communication is moving to something, first approach very short, and then if there is interest, maybe going into depth. So the layers should be planned, and we are designers. We are working on this interface. I understand that there are different needs, no, on the same topic. So I think it's very interesting to understand your reader, also because our readers are mainly makers, so they have a professional interest in reading us. And if you give them too little, they don't get the info they're looking for. No? Having 4 million readers means you have students who are just curious and have not enough knowledge. You have the professionals who know everything and they want to know more. But you also have a person which is not in the field of design, maybe a lawyer or somebody working in medicine, and just wants to understand why forms are the way they are. No? What will be something he would need to fulfill some questions of lifestyle, or what's available on the market. There's so many different needs, and we have to put them in one formula only. I have one chance only. I cannot publish the same article 10 times for different readers. And that makes communication difficult.
Yeah, I think this is also something that that we deal with now that we've updated our website. So one of the beginning of what we're doing is looking very carefully at fast, medium, slow types of information. Quick things, long things, so people have different ways of interacting with it. I think, yeah, it's important. Jan-Christoph, self-referential bubbles.
Maybe just shortly back also to what Birgit was talking about. What I like actually is what you guys are doing is that you're introducing also an element of process into it. Because yes, as professionals, we have a certain way of how to look at things. We have a strong visual sophistication of unpacking the images of what we are seeing, but certainly the processes can help us to understand a little bit more about the context which Markus was talking about. And the context is not just only of use, but also of how it's coming into existence, and that's, I think, very, very important. What you're referring to, the self-referential filter bubbles, is maybe a handful or a mouthful to say, but it really talks to that some years ago everybody was dreaming about of how the technology can help us to push stuff towards us which actually focuses on our needs based on past behaviors, past actions, etc., etc. And that's certainly good. I mean, because yes, we are building our friendships based on how we know each other, but at the same time it produces this kind of cocoon around us where we are, after a certain age maybe, or after a certain practice, we don't get enough new things besides when we look or when we are pushed by others to look. And so the challenge for me is really to go beyond the stuff which I have pre-selected for myself already through my actions before, because that's really an important part for innovation and for changing what we are trying to do. Otherwise, I just repeat painting the same sunflower motifs in whatever professional activity I do.
In the discussion, especially here we are partially presenting our material platform, and interaction is material in the sense that every user or every person that deals with the furniture or with the city or with a building definitely has to engage with it, and that's perhaps the materiality of it. And I was fascinated by two things: by the fact that Markus was talking about the personal relationship with both with the designer or with the architect, and that how that engages with a kind of with this long-term goal that actually defines a materiality that keeps on coming back. And the same, perhaps I'm sure that with the Designboom, you will have a way that users also come back, in the sense that you engage personally with that. And what actually I was more interested to know is how do you develop that? How do you develop that sense of materiality to the people, and how do you develop that intelligence within your work?
Very simple. Speak to intelligent people. that at the beginning helps a lot. And then it's just really challenging each other. And that's very interesting for me, that I have, when you work with world best architects, they have always different ideas coming from different points, coming from different areas. That's why I selected always the people I work with from all these different lifestyle cultures. Vienna, London, Milano, and you really feel a difference because these people experience different things, and they are always pushed from the one or the other side.
For us, contact, interaction and participation is obviously very important. We have noticed that, let's put it general, makers are not talkers. Usually makers are not those who comment on articles. Who comments is very often somebody who is not making anything. It's not always this thing, but when you have 1.5 years, somebody has worked on something nice. We have worked our part in presenting it. It just takes 5 seconds to say, what is this shit? And at the end, this person who comments has the same exposure like the person who has worked 1.5 years, like us, we try to understand and how to communicate. So we obviously have a door open to comments and to this kind of interaction, but not always I feel this is real interaction. We have had excellent comments, like the daughter of Buckminster Fuller, who, when we published something, and she was saying, oh, my dad would have been happy if he would have seen this. So this one comment makes you happy about all the 100 stupid comments you were worrying about. No? And I think the open door is very, very important to have. Our participation or interaction is more with people that they can publish their own work. We give them exposure. And we do design competitions which give them a platform for a cultural discussion, because there's one theme, thousands of elaborations on the theme, and in a way it's a cultural dialogue. This is more what I see apart from Facebook posts and tweets and so on, a more, let's say, propositive way of discuss together.
Maybe just a little bit building on you. I mean, as Experentia, we are trying to position ourselves as the Mr. Wolf of the interaction design business. And if you remember the Quentin Tarantino film, the Mr. Wolf was the guy who was cleaning up the bloody mess and dealt with the most complex issues. And for us, it's not about the bloody mess, but it's essentially the most challenging intellectual or also questions or behavioral questions which are out there. And so meaning building a relationship with clients or with partners like UNStudio or others in really finding something larger as beyond. It doesn't make sense just to design a new website. It doesn't make sense just another mobile application. There is something beyond it which we find, of course, always beautifully expressed in architecture and in design. But how do we do that in the field of interaction design, where it's much more complex to understand and it unravels over time? It's not automatically perceivable from one image of an interface in itself. So it's about relationship building, again, working with intelligent people. And also for us, it's a little bit about cultivating differences. So we, for example, I have a hiring principle where I talk about diverse pairs or cultural diverse pairs. So I hire people normally, for example, we have a Palestinian and an Israeli in the office, or Korean and Japanese, or German, French and Polish, or people who come from cultures which were at a certain time of the history in conflict with each other. So there is an ambiguity, and then I do it on purpose, very intentionally, so that we actually open up the cultural discourse in the company and actually unlock a little bit the bias about the other. And that's actually very, very interesting. And then you get a group of 35 people in Turin which are half foreigners and really want to do a difference. And so that's fun. That's actually stimulating then for ourselves. That's the relationships, even on a day-to-day level in itself.
Thanks. Well, I'd like to ask first if one of the three of you have a question for another, something that sparked your interest. No? Yeah? Jan-Christoph? Yeah?
Maybe to you, Birgit, what's the next level of publishing? Sorry.
Of course, the next level of publishing is publishing and giving the possibility to buy directly. I don't know if this will be my way of doing it, but for sure this is something which will work, and people when they are interested in something, they might want it immediately. And more and more big bulky things get shipped and ordered online, and for sure there is this kind of it's not a commercial article, but at the end you can buy it. No? There will be many, many different outlets. People are using different devices. No? For us, the iPhone or whatever smartphone was not important because we had an layout which wasn't even easy on a very small screen to navigate. But more and more people are using time within, let's say, inside the train or moving somewhere to quickly update themselves. So we need to adapt to many, many different formats and devices. And so there will be the same newspaper, but displayed differently for different kind of users, more and more. I could talk, I think, there are many ways of which will be ours. We are definitely working hard on it because it's very difficult in the fast developing business of publishing. You cannot be happy with the format you found. You need continuously to discuss yourself and to adapt. It's like a mineral water bottle where the design always changes. You don't notice it, but it always remains up to date. Otherwise, you are obsolete. No? So for us, I have introduced a new way of publishing, and I'm already working on the next way because I know I cannot remain where I am. No?
I have one question for Markus here. You guys do beautiful office furnishing, particularly also for the executive office. How is this world of office furnishing changing under more younger management structures, more dynamic, more women in leadership positions? What's the impact on what you are designing? Or?
A good question. That's really a challenge to understand, or let's say it that way, you have a lot of different cultures. And when we talk about what is changing, do you mean leadership in Europe? Do you mean leadership in India, in China, in the States? These are all different subjects. And at the end it relates to the limbic system of people on one side. So that means you have dominance, balance, and stimulants. And you have to understand which kind of personality you are designing for. And when some cultures are going, also as a general approach, is more balance. But at the same time, all these upgrading societies have different needs and different thoughts. And we try to find our way and to design in these mental spaces. And if I would know it exactly, I would tell you what my next product would be at Orgatech, but I don't know yet.
But maybe we have a few more minutes, and before we open it up for additional questions, people standing around the table, there's one thing, Markus, when you were speaking, particularly the image you showed of your offices in Stuttgart, yeah? So this on the road where you're seeing through the building, and you're talking about Stuttgart as a center for manufacturing, and this is, and I think Germany in particular, from the north to the south and the western side of Germany, it's about location. You know, you are in a place where you are located next to your manufacturing peers and you can borrow and work together with them for what you need. And I think as far as an interaction is concerned, and then of course, when Jan-Christoph is talking about how you will deal with different cultures, also how you bring different cultures into your office purposely, they come from different locations, very specific things. And then with Birgit, if location matters at all, given the fact that the content you give is locationless, but you highlighted, the video highlighted very well, that you want to go on location. And what is the difference between this, and what is the more important? Yeah, where the person is reading it, or going there actually, the physical or the virtual. Markus, how important is it to be in Stuttgart?
For let's say, for designing, of course, Stuttgart is not the center of the world, but we are able to bring it, that knowledge. That's what I told in my system. And we have about 270 people, and 22 nations are working, people of 22 nations in the company. So I have a similar aspect. But we deliver an economical cultural performance. What does that mean? We are talking about people with an attitude. And we have highly educated people in our area. We have people who like to do something perfect. This is part of our mentality in our area. And they can work on their own, and they can work together. They can share. They can, yeah. And the second is we have a cluster supply chain. That means we have a lot of companies and they work together. Everyone is a specialist. I may describe it that way. When you go to concert, there's a conductor, and you have a specialist, a violin, a drum, a trumpet, and these players are all have the excellence. But the conductor brings them together in the orchestra, and creates the product which you are listening in the auditorium. And Walter Knoll is the conductor, and we have these specialists around us. And therefore we have a perfect surrounding, and that's why our products cannot be made in any place of the world.
Jan-Christoph. Can you remind me about the challenge?
Location. Whether it's a project, where a project is going, where it ends up, who's using it in a certain place, or about the place where your employees come from?
Oh, location is an interesting challenge. I mean, I grew up in East Germany. I moved over to the US for studying and working there, and then I came over to Italy for the lifestyle, and I'm loving it here. So that's a good attitude to start with, and then essentially any place goes. I mean, our clients are 70% outside of Italy, so a lot of travel to Asia, a lot of travel to the US or in Europe. So in that sense, location matters only as far as you engage your clients to come and work with you at your location, so in Turin, which is quite beautiful. I invite you. On the other side, you are there where they are, and otherwise you get the information through sources like Designboom and others to be informed about interesting stuff which happens at other locations. So location matters, but at the same time it doesn't matter. But at the end it's all just about the life-work balance. Where do I want to live? Where do I get good people who have a similar outlook and still want to challenge themselves? So
I can work wherever I am, obviously, because there's internet everywhere. But at the same time, location is very important, I think. For example, I'm resident in Sardinia, in the south part of Sardinia, where people are very poor. I think it's in Europe the poorest part. And I see a lot of young people not having much to do during the day. And it really depresses me seeing those wonderful, talented people situated on an island, so not very well connected, which have studied, which have let's say, a knowledge which would be enough to find decent work, but they don't find it. And I would hope that a publication like mine does not, that could help them. There's no need that everybody lives in Milan or in Tokyo or in London. You should develop in the location you have chosen to live, I think. And if you get the right tools to be able, somebody might have a good idea, is able to develop a project, to employ people locally, and at the end we are talking about manufacture, no? Something which has to be built, to produced. So I think location in this case is very important, and I'm very proud of the fact that many people who are dislocated feel connected and feel they get the same kind of good information, valuable information, independent from where they are based. On the other hand, it's like with the artwork. Art lives from the viewer. It's not a piece in itself. There is the interaction. So I think that what somebody does is perceived also differently in different locations, no? From different cultural backgrounds. So I think this is very interesting to understand how different cultures perceive the same manufacture or the same form. So location is for sure there very interesting.
Absolutely. Does anyone sitting that would like to ask a question on the circle sofa, on the mind chair? Yeah.
Thanks. I had a question about the digital existence. We are still working in 2 dimensions when we were designing websites or so forth, but as you do the presentations, you're talking about creating experiences and environments. As every human being, creative or not, we are born into a 3-dimensional world, so we are very used to looking at everything in depth, length, and width. But after all these years that we have created a virtual reality, which is our control world, we are still focusing on only 2 dimensions, which is as if we are writing on a piece of paper. When do you think we are going to push that boundary where we actually expect ourselves to create at least 3 dimensions in the worlds that we create? So maybe 5 years from then, we will create 4-dimensional worlds and then add the 5th dimension and the 6th dimension, and kind of push the boundaries of creativity, at least amongst ourselves as designers. So little by little, the society gets used to more, and kind of push that intelligence to more possibilities.
Yeah, 3 dimensions. Of course, Markus, you always work. That's natural. It comes that way. Yeah, but I think, but maybe, but maybe Jan-Christoph, for instance.
Maybe on digital interfaces, I can talk
Exactly,
about on 2 levels. If we talk about interfaces in terms of what we see on the web, on touch points like mobile and others, and if we ask for 3D or kind of 3rd dimensions there, then that's actually really a problem, because we have seen a lot of this 3D kind of interfaces for smart TVs, and they really don't work. They don't really add anything to our cognitive understanding. They add a cognitive load because it's still a flat screen in which we look. But on the other side, really look at the dimension more from a time perspective. I talked earlier on about healthcare data. Now, as you can collect your healthcare or wellness data over time, you will have later on a way of unleashing in a visualization, in a representation, the way of how your, let's say, healthcare patterns developed, to understand a little bit better of what were the triggering aspects of a particular healthcare situation. So there, I think, in interface or interaction design terms, there are interesting dimensions coming up, but otherwise, purely of what we see on the screen, I don't think 3 dimensions per se matter, but I'm a little bit old-fashioned here.
Is there maybe a relationship also between, let's say, the furniture world, which is inherently tactile, and I mean, imagine for the past 20 years before the computer was useful, then everything, a model was made by the hand. The model that we see here was also made with the hands, and a relationship between this and what Jan-Christoph does in his work, in what Knoll might be doing in the future.
I don't know if I got the question right, but I think maybe it's the good thing of a human being that we are able to interpret 2 dimensions, and that necessarily not everything has to be in 3 dimensions, because the thing to perceive something in 3 dimension has more information than 2 dimension, and it's clearer. And when we talk about always this, everything what is possible is not always helpful. 2 dimensions reduce something in the right way, and my feeling is that's one of the real strong things of a human being, that you can see 2 dimensions and have the right feeling. So when you, for instance, when you look on maps and you go on these navigation systems, I'm totally confused with the 3-dimensional map. I don't like it at all. I have learned, but it's a cultural background, and I've talked to a lot of people, and when they look on a layout, also on plans, they don't see anything, because they have not developed on a cultural base to understand what a 2-dimension plan could be in 3 dimension. And so I think not everything has to be in 3 dimension.
Okay, yeah. Birgit.
I agree with the fact that 2 dimensions are already an abstraction from reality. So it's already a selection of what is useful for us. In fact, I'm more interested in the 4th dimension, like beaming, no? Enterprise. If it would be possible to teletransport somebody, would be very nice. To don't have so much time lost in cars and traveling or what is. I think this is the more fascinating dimension.
Well, dimensionally, I think that perhaps for us what was actually interesting is to develop outside the world of our office and to be here actually with you. This is our 5th dimension, or our 6.0 version, is to be able to interact and to stimulate the discourse that goes behind the design and the client relationships, and it's actually to stimulate a new generation of understanding, and that might help to develop new ideas.
Well, any other questions from the audience? No? Well, I think, yeah, with that, I mean, I think Filippo said it just right. That's why we're here. That's what all the furniture around us is actually about, is collaboration. Collaboration in the ambient and very direct ways. And yeah, I want to thank Birgit and Jan-Christoph, Markus, Filippo as well for sitting with us. And we end the 3rd dialogue. Exciting. Thank you so much. And see you all next time.